Welcome back everyone. Today we're talking cover-ups. Time to stop smiling actually, it's not a funny video. From time to time everyone has a white lie. Nobody's perfect. All we can do is try to tell the truth and be honest in life. That sort of forgiveness doesn't really work though when it comes to governments, and especially when you hear about the scandals that they've been trying to cover up over the years. Today we're looking at America. A good place to start, I think. My name is Danny Burke and this is the top 10 scary American cover-ups. Starting off at number 10 now, we have Watergate. Absolute classic. On June 17th, 1972, several burglars were arrested in the office at the Democratic National Committee located in the Watergate complex in Washington, D.C. So what, you may ask? Well, it wasn't any normal robbery. The men were connected to President Nixon's re-election campaign, and they had been caught red-handed wiretapping phones and stealing documents from the opposition. That was only half of the scandal though. When the rumors started circulating, Nixon actively tried to cover his tracks and any trails that would lead back to him. Over the next 2 years, Nixon would go about firing anyone within the White House administration that he wanted to create distance between because of the ongoing FBI investigation. By 1974, the investigation began moving to impeach Nixon himself. They eventually found a secret recording from just after the burglary happened that seemed to show Nixon had been lying when he said he was not involved in the cover-up. He resigned from office, becoming the only US president to ever do so. Moving on to number 9 now, we have Operation Northwoods. In 1962, the US Department of Defense proposed a plan to President Kennedy. They needed justification for going to war with Cuba and deposing the newly elected Fidel Castro, who had just become a bastion of communism just a stone's throw away from Florida. The plan they had was for the US government operatives to commit acts of terrorism against American civilians and military targets, blame it on the Cuban government, and then declare war on Cuba. That was the plan they proposed, to kill their own civilians and blame it on others so they could just start a war. Thankfully, JFK said no. Hopefully, because it's clearly a mental plan. Not only that, he removed the chairman from his job after that proposal. It would be another 35 years before the plan was declassified and the world could learn just how mental it was. Next up at number 8 now, we have Operation Paperclip. What if I told you that after World War II, the US government smuggled in more than 1,600 German scientists into the US as the Third Reich collapsed. Many of them were former members of the Nazi Party, some were even former leaders. Why would the US do this? Well, with the Second World War over, the Cold War was now beginning, with the US and Russia vying for technological superiority. They believed that these scientists would help give the US a military advantage and also help them with the space race. You can see though how this wouldn't have played very well with the American public. Nazi scientists living in America while families are picking themselves up after a horrific war. It was President Truman who originally signed off on this order. Years later, in 1963, Truman recalled that he was not reluctant to approve of Operation Paperclip because of the US relationship with Russia at the time, saying this had to be done and was done. Next up at number 7 now, we have the JFK assassination. As soon as I say that, some people are thinking, oh god, I really hope Danny isn't one of those crazy conspiracy nuts. No, I'm not. I don't really have any strongly held beliefs about the assassination of President Kennedy. Some people still say he was killed by a rogue Secret Service agent or that there were multiple gunmen. Take a look at the evidence yourself and make up your own mind. One thing I do find interesting though is the government's continued withholding of information. Every document relating to the investigation into the assassination was supposed to be automatically released in 2017. The world was finally going to learn what happened and if there ever was any attempt at a cover-up. But then President Trump had a last-minute change of heart. He blocked the release of some documents and redacted others, citing national security concerns. He then went on to state that some of the documents must continue to be withheld in the interest of national security that outweighs the public interest. Just like everything else involved with the JFK assassination, there may be a perfectly reasonable explanation for everything, but all of this withholding and redacting has only given fuel to the fire of conspiracy theorists. Moving on to number 6 now, we have surveillance. For a while it was a running joke that the CIA was listening in on the American people, but in 2013 the joke really turned into a reality. Edward Snowden, a former employee of the CIA, became the whistleblower for a huge cover-up. He told the media how the American government was spying on its citizens by collecting the telephone records of tens of millions of people. Not long after that, things took an even bigger turn when it was announced the NSA CIA had access to the servers of Facebook, Google, Microsoft, Yahoo, and a number of others. The surveillance program came under a wider operation called PRISM that monitored 600 million communications a day, sometimes even outside of the US. The years that followed sparked large-scale debates and investigations into the powers of the surveillance operations. Coming in at number 5 now, we have Operation Majestic 12. According to some conspiracy theorists, this was the code name given to a top secret committee of 12 scientists, military officials, and government officials formed by President Truman in 1947. Their goal was simple: to recover and investigate alien spacecraft. The theory started when ufologist Jamie Chandera received an envelope containing film which showed images of 8 pages of documents that appeared to be briefing papers describing the Majestic 12. It also acknowledged the alien spacecraft at Roswell in 1947 that had been concealed, and that officials believed recovered alien technology could be exploited. It even contained plans for how to engage with extraterrestrial life in the future. The government has always denied all of this, and to be honest, even a lot of ufologists have too. There are now only a very small amount of people who give any credence to the Majestic 12 theory as being real, but they believe it's the biggest cover-up of all time. Moving on to number 4 now, we have Project MK Ultra. To put it quite simply, this was a 20-year program of experiments conducted by the CIA on members of the American public. They tested drugs and procedures on people to see if they could enhance interrogation techniques and force confessions through mind control. Many of the drugs were psychedelic in nature. LSD was used extensively. At some points, these experiments were even designed to see if they could make people do things against their own will, even if it went against their own self-preservation. The experiments began in 1953 across America and Canada. They were reduced in 1964, then in 1967, and finally stopped altogether in 1973. All of this is only known though when it was first brought to the public's attention in 1975, after 20 years. It was difficult for investigators to understand the full scope of these experiments because the former CIA director Richard Helms had ordered that most of the MK Ultra records be destroyed. Next up, number 3 now, we have Area 51. You guys may have heard of this US Air Force base in the Nevada desert. For decades now, it has been the mecca for all things conspiracy and alien related. The fact that this base has always been so secretive has only served to stoke the fire. Some people believe that the US government keeps captured aliens there. One famous example is the 1947 Roswell crash site, which many people say was actually the site where an alien ship crashed. Since then, they think the government has been reverse engineering alien technology without the public knowing. There are other less known theories, such as the belief that the US government filmed the 1969 moon landings in one of the base hangars. Whether or not you believe in all of the conspiracy theories, the US government is hiding some things from the public there. In its 65-year history, the government didn't even acknowledge the base existed until 2005, when they were forced to due to a Freedom of Information request. Most experts presume the base is used for top secret experimental aircraft and weapons systems testing. Despite the slightly increased openness when it comes to Area 51, most people won't feel truly happy until every inch of it is made known to the public. Moving on to number 2 now, guys, we have Project Sunshine. This was a series of studies commissioned by the US Atomic Energy Commission. Now, they wanted to examine the long-term effects of nuclear radiation on human life due to nuclear testing. They were particularly interested in analyzing the tissue of young people who have the highest susceptibility to radiation damage. One of the lead members of the project, Dr. Willard Libby, said there was insufficient data regarding the effects of nuclear fallout due to lack of human samples. He was quoted as saying, and this quote is absolutely crazy, "I don't know how to get them, but I do say that it is a matter of prime importance to get them, and particularly in the young age group. So, human samples are often of prime importance, and if anybody knows how to do a good job of body snatching, they will really be serving their country." Mental. In the end, they gathered over 1,500 bodies, many of whom were young children from Australia and Europe, without their parents' consent or knowledge. In 1959, the project was finally brought to a halt. And finally now, at number 1, we have Lennon listeners. This may not be the most serious thing on this list, but the US government spied on John Lennon, as in one of the Beatles. It's a very bizarre story. In the early 70s, Lennon was getting a lot of attention for saying some pretty controversial things. He said that war is bad and peace is good. Naturally, this was against the government's line at the time, who were busy trying to convince the American public that the ongoing war in Vietnam was a good thing. Lennon ended up on an FBI watch list, they terminated his visa and began deportation proceedings. They even followed the activities of Yoko Ono, his wife. In the end, through all of this following and spying, they discovered something shocking. John Lennon was just a huge music icon who didn't like war. Yeah, they found nothing. No conspiracies, no plots, he was just a normal dude. The FBI closed its investigation a month after Nixon was re-elected. The events are detailed in the 2006 documentary, The US vs. John Lennon. Well, when I started this video, I didn't think I would end it talking about the Beatles or John Lennon, but here we are anyway. Did you like those cover-ups? We're thinking about doing other countries, but it's up to you. I bet the UK has covered up a bunch of stuff in its history. Maybe we could do China, might be a good one. Let me know either way. Thanks for watching, as always guys. My name is Danny Burke and I will see you all in the next one.